Tonight, we are not sailing through outer space. We are drifting through inner space, into the vast invisible cosmos that exists within you. A universe made not of galaxies and nebulae, but of neurons and light. Each thought, each flicker of awareness begins as an electrical spark, a shimmer of energy traveling through delicate networks of cells. If you could peer inside your mind, you would see billions of these small flashes glimmering and fading, like constellations forming and dissolving in endless rhythm. Science calls this living web, the human brain, a dense and fluid structure, weighing about 3 pounds, holding close to 86 billion neurons. Each neuron can connect to thousands of others, creating a number of possible connections, so vast it exceeds the number of stars in the known universe. Within this quiet electrical storm, everything you've ever felt, remembered, or dreamed takes shape. It is humbling to realize that the same laws of physics guiding stars and atoms also guide your thoughts. Electricity, magnetism, gravity, these invisible forces dance through both cosmos and consciousness. And so the mind becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting the larger universe in miniature form. As above, so within. When scientists map the brain, they find patterns as intricate as any galaxy cluster. Neural pathways form spiral arcs and branching rivers, creating a landscape of motion and light. Signals pulse and recede, guiding perception, emotion, and imagination in graceful synchrony. Even when you rest, the mind hums softly, maintaining balance, breathing rhythm into thought. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice how darkness is not absence, but texture, the gentle flicker of unseen patterns behind the lids. That shimmer, that quiet energy, is the echo of life itself. Your mind never truly sleeps. It simply shifts its rhythm, dreaming in a language older than words. In every heartbeat, the brain consumes 1/5 of the oxygen your body takes in. With each slow inhalation, you feed its fire. Neurons depend on this breath, a steady supply of oxygen and glucose, to maintain their luminous exchanges. The rhythm of breathing becomes the rhythm of thinking. It is why meditation, or even simple stillness, feels restorative. When you breathe slowly, neural networks align into calm coherence. Brain waves, which once fluttered in frantic motion, begin to synchronize into slower, more harmonious patterns, alpha and theta rhythms. These waves are the soundless music of the mind at peace. If the brain were visible, it would resemble a glowing city seen from above at night. Pulses of light streaming along bridges, bursts of energy flaring in distant districts, calm neighborhoods resting in dim gold. Each region performs a role. The prefrontal cortex gently orchestrates focus and self-awareness. The hippocampus files memories away. The amygdala colors them with emotion. And all of it happens within fractions of a second, faster than thought, slower than eternity. Neuroscientists sometimes call this the connectome, a term for the brain's total map of connections. But perhaps it could just as well be called a universe, one made not of matter but of meaning. Every experience you've ever had is a star shining somewhere within it. And yet, for all our knowledge, the true nature of consciousness remains mysterious. Science can trace each impulse record, each wave, even simulate neural networks with computers 1,000,000 times faster than human thought. And still, no one can say exactly how awareness arises. It is as though a spark leaps from the physical to the ineffable, lighting the darkness for an instant before fading into mystery again. Perhaps that is what makes the mind so extraordinary. It is both observer and observed. It dreams, then questions its own dreams. It perceives, then wonders what perception means. It gazes into itself, as the cosmos gazes into its own expanse. For centuries, philosophers and scientists alike have tried to define this mystery. Some describe consciousness as an emergent property, a pattern that arises when complexity crosses a threshold. Others see it as fundamental, something woven into the very fabric of the universe, like space or time. In either view, awareness connects us to everything around us. When you pause to listen to your own breath, you are sensing that connection, the gentle alignment between body and mind, self and world. Your thoughts are not isolated. They are ripples in a vast sea of energy, shaped by the same physics that stirs the stars. In this sense, every act of awareness is an act of cosmic participation. Now imagine drifting through this inner space, as if you were floating through the Milky Way. Instead of planets, you pass memories, bright orbs of recollection circling your awareness. Instead of comets, emotions trail luminous tails across your mental sky. And far beneath these orbits lies the quiet, gravitational center, your consciousness, still and radiant. In laboratories around the world, scientists study the brain with tools of remarkable precision. Magnetic resonance imaging can reveal which regions light up when you dream or remember. Electroencephalography records electrical rhythms as your thoughts wander and settle, and yet no scan can capture the feeling of being the warmth of nostalgia, the depth of love, the breath of wonder. Those belong to the invisible dimension of experience, a realm we can sense but never measure. The wonder of science is not that it replaces mystery, but that it deepens it. Each discovery reveals not simplicity, but layers upon layers of exquisite design. The more we uncover about the mind, the more we glimpse a pattern that feels both mechanical and miraculous. And so, as you rest here listening, perhaps you can imagine yourself as both explorer and landscape. The explorer moves through thought curiosity, lighting the way. The landscape responds, shifting and opening, in silent invitation. You are not separate from what you observe. You are the observation, a living witness of your own infinite sky. If your mind feels restless, that too is part of the dance. Thoughts come and go like waves, never wrong, never right, simply passing weather in the atmosphere of being. Every neuron that fires every flicker of memory is a note in the grand symphony of awareness. It is always changing, and yet it remains whole. You might picture your thoughts as distant galaxies, countless luminous, slowly turning. Some draw closer, glowing with emotion. Others drift away, faint and forgotten. And somewhere, at the center, always steady, is the quiet observer, the self that watches the consciousness that simply is. This is where science and serenity meet. To understand the brain is to glimpse not only biology, but beauty. Every neuron, every pulse of electricity is a story of connection, a thread linking past to present, self to world. Your brain has never stopped changing since the moment you were born. It rewires itself with every new thought, every learned skill, every emotion felt and released. This endless adaptation, neuroplasticity, is the very reason you can grow, heal, and dream anew. In a way, you are a work of art, still being painted brushstroke by brushstroke, moment by moment. Each day, new colors blend into the canvas, subtle and infinite. And though no one can see it, this art glows from within, a masterpiece of light and thought. Let your breath deepen. Feel the hum beneath your chest, that ancient rhythm of life pulsing like a faraway drumbeat in the dark. The same beat that guided your first heartbeat guides the stars themselves, each following its own orbit, yet part of one universal pulse. You are both the silence and the song, both the question and the answer, both the dreamer and the dream. And as we prepare to wander deeper into this inner cosmos, into the hidden truths of thought and feeling, remember this: every time you pause, every time you breathe and listen, the universe listens back, because the space within you and the space beyond you are made of the same quiet light. And so, our journey inward begins not through telescopes or microscopes, but through the tranquil orbit of awareness itself. Next, we'll drift into the gentle stillness of night and discover what happens when the mind begins to loosen its hold on the waking world. There is a particular stillness that arrives late at night, a hush that spreads across streets, houses, and even the mind itself. The air seems heavier, softer somehow. Lights fade from windows, one by one, and in that growing quiet, something gentle begins to happen inside you. The world withdraws and the self comes forward. This is the hour when the mind loosens its grip, when the barriers that hold us steady through the day begin to dissolve. Thoughts that were neatly arranged now drift like slow-moving clouds. The edges of your identity blur not in confusion, but in rest. It's the body's natural rhythm, an ancient biological tide that guides all living things toward restoration. As night deepens, the brain's chemistry shifts. Melatonin begins to rise, whispering to your cells that it's time to let go. The prefrontal cortex, that careful architect of logic and restraint, relaxes its constant vigilance. And when it does, another kind of honesty begins to glow through the dimness. It's the reason conversations at midnight can feel deeper, truer, and more tender than those spoken in daylight. Scientists have studied this nocturnal transparency. They found that as fatigue grows, the brain's control centers yield to the emotional ones, the limbic system, the amygdala, the hippocampus. Words that once hesitated behind walls of inhibition now drift freely. Late at night, people are more likely to say what they truly think, to confess, to reflect, to connect. It isn't recklessness, it's release. Imagine a city at dusk. All day, the noise of engines, footsteps, and conversations has echoed through its narrow streets. But as darkness spreads, one sound after another fades. Windows, closed doors, latchlights blink out. What remains is the soft hum of streetlights, the rustle of wind in distant leaves, and somewhere, a quiet mind exhaling after hours of motion. The same thing happens within you. When the world's demands quiet down your thoughts, stop shouting over one another. The mind that once raced to keep pace with schedules and screens begins to slow to a more natural rhythm. That rhythm, about 8 to 12 cycles per second, is what neuroscientists call the alpha state, the gentle twilight between wakefulness and sleep. It's where creativity, memory, and emotion blend in delicate harmony. And yet, this stillness is not just physical. It is psychological. At night, self-consciousness eases. We become more inward, more reflective, more open to subtle emotions. Perhaps this is why music sounds deeper after midnight, or why a single candle flame feels almost alive. Night doesn't merely darken the world, it softens it. There's a certain honesty that belongs only to darkness. In the absence of bright light, the eyes strain less. The senses recalibrate. You begin to hear subtleties, the faint ticking of a clock, the quiet hum of electricity in the walls. Even the silence itself feels textured, filled with invisible movement. Your brain, too, becomes more attuned to what lies beneath. Surface, noise, emotion, intuition, memory. Researchers studying circadian rhythms have observed that during nighttime hours, activity in the prefrontal cortex diminishes while emotional centers stay active. This neurological shift explains why late-night reflection can bring truths that daylight keeps at bay. It is as though your mind, no longer distracted by daylight's demands, finally has time to listen to itself. But this vulnerability, this quiet openness, is a gift. It reminds us that truth does not always arrive with clarity or force. Sometimes it comes as a whisper, the simple awareness of being alive, the realization that underneath all the striving and noise, something inside you remains perfectly still. In this silence, even memory changes. Studies have shown that people recall emotional experiences more vividly when they're tired, not because fatigue sharpens thought, but because it thins the walls between conscious and subconscious. The mind becomes porous. Thoughts drift upward from hidden layers. Stories long buried resurface like glowing embers in the dark. It's why old memories often return late at night, carried gently on the tide of half sleep. If you've ever lain awake replaying moments from years ago, you've felt this tide. But instead of resisting it, you can learn to float upon it, to watch your thoughts move past, like stars crossing the night sky. Each one is a fragment of your inner world, illuminated for a brief moment before fading into peace. Nighttime honesty is not only about what we say, but what we feel. In the calm stripped of distraction, emotions gain volume. You might suddenly understand the kindness in a gesture you once overlooked, or sense the ache behind a forgotten goodbye. These realizations can feel like gentle waves, washing the mind clean. Not painful, but cleansing, reminding you of your own depth. The psychology of this quiet hour has fascinated scientists for decades. In one study, participants asked to write late at night produced more emotionally expressive and introspective work than those writing in the morning. The fatigue of the hour, combined with lowered inhibition, seemed to open a door to authenticity. As though exhaustion were not depletion, but invitation, the mind's way of returning to truth. This is why poets and thinkers have long turned to the night for inspiration. It is a laboratory of emotion where the logical mind rests and the intuitive one awakens. In the silence, you hear yourself clearly, not the self you show the world, but the one that lingers beneath it, curious, soft, unguarded. Imagine this stillness as a great lake, smooth as glass, under moonlight. Every ripple is a thought, every glint of light, a memory. And beneath it all lies depth, endless, tranquil, mysterious. When the surface grows calm, the reflection becomes clear. That reflection is you, not the face you wear, but the awareness that watches it. The stillness of night is not emptiness, it is fullness. It holds the hum of everything alive, the faint stirrings of wind through branches, the breath of sleeping animals, the slow pulse of the earth itself. The world has not gone silent. It has simply lowered its voice, so that yours can rise. There is a certain humility in darkness. Without the sharp edges of daylight, we remember that we are part of something vast and tender. The same cycles that govern planets and tides also guide our own rest. Just as the moon pulls the ocean into gentle sway, so too does the night draw the mind inward toward equilibrium. Even the stars overhead remind us that stillness is not the absence of motion, it is balance. Those distant points of light travel at thousands of miles per second, and yet, from here, they appear perfectly still. Perhaps peace then is not the stopping of motion, but the harmony of it. A dance so slow it becomes silence. So as you listen now, let your breath match that rhythm, slow, steady, lunar. Feel the air moving through you, like a tide arriving and departing with effortless grace. Each inhale gathers the day's remnants. Each exhale releases them into the dark. The body knows what to do. It always has. The night invites you to unclench, to let thought, emotion, and awareness drift together in quiet understanding. This is not forgetting, it's remembering differently. Remembering that stillness is not the opposite of living, but a way of returning to it. Soon we'll explore what happens when this calm deepens, when attention fragments and focus falters, and how the mind learns, through both science and silence, the art of doing one thing at a time. But for now, remain here a little longer. Feel how the quiet folds around you like soft wings closing in gentle protection. Somewhere outside the stars, turn unseen above sleeping fields. Somewhere within your thoughts are turning too slower now, softer. All of it, part of one vast rhythm. And now, as the night continues its slow descent into peace, the world grows quieter still. From this hush, we'll soon awaken to a truth of our own, making the delicate balance between attention and rest. During the day, the world rushes in from every direction. Notifications, blink screens, glow voices overlap. The human brain, designed through millions of years of evolution to follow the flight of one bird or the crackle of one fire, now finds itself surrounded by 1,000 flickering flames. Each one asks for attention. Each one pulls at the same fragile thread. Attention is often mistaken for infinite energy, a resource we can spend freely. But the truth is gentler and more limited. The human mind, for all its complexity, can focus fully on only one thing at a time. When we try to divide it, answering a message while listening to a friend, scrolling while thinking, eating while worrying, our mental clarity fractures like light through a prism. Inside your skull, the prefrontal cortex works like a conductor leading an orchestra. When you focus on a single task, neurons fire in harmony, energy flows efficiently, and memories settle neatly into place. But when you attempt to multitask, this conductor begins to switch rapidly between instruments. The rhythm falters. Each transition carries what scientists call a switching cost, a brief but measurable delay as your brain resets and reorients. The result is subtle but cumulative fatigue, forgetfulness, and a faint sense of never truly being present. Imagine a calm lake disturbed by too many pebbles thrown at once. Ripples collide, cancel, and distort each other. What was once a clear reflection becomes chaos. This is what happens within the mind. When you juggle too much at once, the surface of thought loses coherence. Cognitive neuroscientists have observed this effect in brain scans. Each shift of attention increases the brain's consumption of glucose and oxygen, depleting its energy reserves. That small jolt of satisfaction you feel when switching tasks, checking a new message, glancing at a fresh headline, is a dopamine spark, not fulfillment, but a promise of it. The chemical reward urges you to keep searching, keep scattering your focus, as if somewhere in the next flicker lies completion. But the more you chase that flicker, the less you see. The deeper truths of the world, the sound of rain on glass, the meaning behind a friend's words, the quiet beauty of a single thought fade beneath the noise. It is not just productivity that is lost, it is presence. There is a quiet irony here. The brain that once ensured our survival through quick attention shifts, scanning for predators or opportunity. is now overstimulated by signals that rarely matter. We are wired to notice novelty, yet drowned by it. Every notification feels urgent, because once upon a time, change meant danger or discovery. But in the digital landscape, most changes are hollow echoes with no depth. And yet, beneath the static, the mind remembers another rhythm, a slower, steadier pulse. The kind that once guided our ancestors as they watched the sky, listened to the sea, or traced constellations across the darkness. Attention was not divided, then it was devotion. To watch, to listen, to learn from stillness. Psychologists have shown that people who train themselves in single-task focus, whether through meditation, craft, or art, experience measurable improvements in working memory, emotional balance, and even empathy. The brain, when given permission to rest on one thing, blooms. Neural pathways strengthen, forming long-term patterns of calm attention. The hippocampus, the gentle archivist of experience, stores memories more clearly, and the amygdala, often stirred into anxiety by overstimulation, quiets into peace. Perhaps this is why some of life's simplest acts, kneading bread, painting, or walking through a forest, feel so grounding. Each draws the mind into unity. Each tells the nervous system there is time enough. In one study, participants asked to perform a series of complex tasks sequentially rather than simultaneously. Not only completed them faster, but also reported feeling more at ease and more present. What science reveals, the spirit already knows that attention is a form of love. Where you place it, life expands. Where you scatter it, meaning dissolves. Try to remember a moment from childhood when you were utterly absorbed, building something, drawing, gazing into a moving river. That sensation of timelessness was not the absence of thought, but the fullness of it. Every neuron, every breath, every heartbeat, joined in quiet cooperation. That is what focus feels like when it becomes harmony. In our modern world, where information flows faster than ever, the ability to hold one thing in mind is not a weakness, it is wisdom. And the cost of dividing the mind is not measured in seconds lost, but in the subtle erosion of wonder. Imagine yourself in a candlelit room. Before you, a single flame trembles in the still air. Now imagine trying to light 10 more candles, each in a different direction, while keeping the first alive. Your energy scatters. The flame dims. But if you lean close and breathe slowly, focusing on that one light, it steadies, brightens, and fills the space with warmth. That flame is your attention. Your life follows where it glows. In the body, even breath mirrors this principle. Shallow breathing, like scattered thought, keeps the nervous system on edge. Slow, deliberate breathing restores coherence. Oxygen levels stabilize, heart rate slows, and the parasympathetic system invites calm. It is as if the breath itself were reminding you one thing at a time. Through mindful awareness, the act of noticing without judgment, you reclaim that ancient clarity. The brain's default mode network, often active in distraction and self-referential thinking, begins to quiet. Instead, regions linked to present awareness strengthen. You begin to experience life, not as fragments, but as a flowing whole. Even in the smallest acts, attention can be transformed into art. The sound of water pouring, the texture of fabric beneath your fingertips, the taste of something simple, bread, tea, sunlight. Each sensation becomes vivid when given full presence. You realize that the ordinary world hides infinite beauty, revealed only to the mind that slows enough to see it. When you focus deeply, time itself seems to change. Seconds lengthen, moments stretch open like petals unfolding, and within that expansion, anxiety loses its footing. The mind, no longer pulled in many directions, rediscovers stillness at its center. This is not withdrawal, it is awakening. You are not retreating from life, you are returning to it. You are stepping back into the rhythm of reality, where one sound, one breath, one thought is enough. Even in the vast, complex machinery of the brain, harmony is achieved through unity, not volume. The most powerful networks, those that create language, movement, emotion, operate through coordination, not chaos. In that sense, focus is not restraint, but resonance. The mind, when unified, hums at its natural frequency. So tonight, as you listen, perhaps you can choose one single thing to rest your awareness on: the breath, the voice, the silence between words. Let everything else soften and fade, because what you give your attention to, you strengthen, and what you strengthen shapes the story of your life. The cost of dividing the mind is forgetting how whole you already are. But in remembering and gathering your thoughts back into one luminous thread, you return to the calm intelligence that has always guided you. Somewhere far from noise and speed, the lake of thought grows still again. The ripples fade, the reflection clears, and there you are, focused, awake, unbroken. And so, as the candle of attention steadies in the night, the flame grows bright once more. In the next chapter, we'll step beyond solitude and discover how connection through a single touch brings minds and hearts back into perfect rhythm. Some truths cannot be spoken. They move instead through skin warmth and the quiet space between heartbeats. Touch, so simple, so ancient, is one of the first languages the human body learns, long before words find form. It is the way an infant knows safety, the way two people share comfort without needing to explain it. And behind its tenderness lies a profound biological intelligence. The body's way of saying, "You are not alone." Touch is the oldest form of communication on Earth. Before eyes opened, before sound evolved, living creatures felt the world through contact. Cells brushed against one another in early oceans, exchanging chemicals, recognizing kin. Even now, all life depends on this sense, from the way roots feel their way through soil, to the way whales maintain bonds by brushing fins in the dark waters of the deep. In humans, touch is both physical and emotional. A gentle hand on your shoulder, a hug shared in silence, a friend's reassuring squeeze, each sends a cascade of signals through your nervous system. Pressure receptors in your skin trigger nerve fibers, known as C-tactile afferents, which send messages not to the parts of the brain that register sharpness or pain, but to those that process emotion. The result is not just sensation, but meaning. Warmth, trust, belonging translated directly through the body's circuitry. In that moment, chemistry becomes empathy. The brain releases oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin calms the amygdala, slows the heart rate, and lowers cortisol, the stress hormone. The same molecule that helped our ancestors form families and tribes continues to knit invisible threads between us today. Touch, in its most genuine form, is the body's version of saying, "You are safe here." Imagine two hands meeting. The skin warms, pulses align. Beneath the surface, thousands of sensory receptors spark to life, sending signals that race through the spinal cord to the brain's emotional centers. And then something quieter happens, something scientists can measure yet never fully describe. The brain waves of two people begin to synchronize. Heart rates too drift into rhythm. It's as though the simple act of contact allows two nervous systems to hum in harmony. Researchers studying couples and close friends have found this synchronization again and again. When one person experiences pain, and another holds their hand. Both show aligned neural patterns. The comforting partner's brain, echoing the other's distress, sharing and softening it. It's empathy, made literal, a physiological duet. Touch doesn't merely soothe the mind, it tunes it. In a laboratory setting, these patterns can be seen as overlapping waves of light on a monitor. But in life, they're felt as calm, the subtle easing of breath, the melting of tension, the sudden sense of peace in another's presence. To be touched with kindness is to be reminded of your place in the quiet web of living things. Touch can also awaken memory. The texture of worn fabric, the temperature of sun-warmed wood, the weight of another's hand, each can open a door in the mind. The somatosensory cortex, which maps sensations across your body, connects intimately with the hippocampus, the brain's keeper of memory. That is why something as simple as the feel of rain on your skin can bring you back decades in an instant. The body remembers what the mind forgets. When people are deprived of touch for long periods, the effects ripple through both brain and body. Loneliness is not only emotional, it is physiological. Heart rate rises, sleep falters, immune response weakens. Without the reassurance of contact, the nervous system becomes untethered, unsure of where safety lies. This is why comforting touch is so vital, a silent calibration that reminds the body of its boundaries and belonging. Touch therapy and practices like gentle massage, yoga, or even holding hands have measurable effects on human health. They reduce blood pressure, regulate breathing, and encourage the production of serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters of contentment and reward. Science confirms what the soul already knows. Connection heals. Even digital communication, the endless flow of messages and screens, cannot fully replace this elemental need. The brain craves the warmth of skin, the small variations of texture, the rhythm of presence. A word typed on a screen can comfort the mind, but a hand held in silence comforts the body, and through it, the mind follows. Perhaps that is why the natural world still calls to us. When we walk barefoot on earth, or let the wind brush against our face, we are engaging in a kind of conversation with the planet itself. The texture of bark, the softness of moss, the gentle pressure of sand underfoot, these sensations remind our nervous system of its origins. Touch grounds us not just to one another, but to existence itself. There's something quietly miraculous about how the brain distinguishes between harmful and healing touch. Pain travels along one set of nerves, slow and sharp. Comfort along another, softer and warmer. And yet both converge in the same network that processes emotion. It's as though the mind understands that pain and love are not opposites, but partners, each teaching the body how to feel more deeply. Touch also shapes who we become. Infants held regularly develop stronger immune systems, steadier heart rhythms, and more secure emotional attachment. In early childhood, the simple presence of touch helps the brain wire itself for empathy and trust. These early patterns echo through life, how we hold others, how we comfort, how we receive comfort. There is no universal language, but there is universal contact. Every culture, every time, every living thing has understood touch as communication, from a mother brushing dust from her child's cheek to strangers, shaking hands in greeting. We use it to affirm existence. I see you. You are real. When touch is gentle and consented, it can even ease physical pain. Through what's known as the gate control theory of pain, soft stimulation, like a hand rubbing a sore spot, sends competing signals to the spinal cord that reduce the perception of discomfort. The nerves cannot transmit both pain and comfort with equal strength, so the brain mercifully listens to the softer voice. In that sense, Touch is both shield and balm, a whisper against the noise of hurt. It tells the body that though suffering is real, so is care. Imagine this now. Two people standing in silence. One reaches out gently, placing a hand on the other's arm. No words, no explanations, only warmth. Time slows, breath aligns, and within that moment, science and tenderness become one and the same. Touch does not need to fix what is broken. It simply reminds the heart that nothing is entirely separate. Your skin, after all, is not a boundary, it is a bridge. Every cell at its surface communicates constantly, with the world exchanging heat, sensation, and energy. To be alive is to be in contact. In the language of the body, touch is both question and answer. It asks, "Are you there?" And it replies, "Yes, I am." It is reassurance, written in sensation, comfort, translated into chemistry, and when offered with compassion, it speaks more eloquently than any phrase. Perhaps that's what love really is, not a thought, not even a feeling, but a biological truth. Two nervous systems aligning, two heartbeats keeping time. So as you rest now, take a slow breath and imagine warmth traveling through you, from your palms, through your chest, down into the quiet rhythm of your heartbeat. This is connection too, the meeting of body and awareness. You are touching the moment itself. And now, as the pulse of connection fades back into stillness, we move from the intimacy of touch into an even subtler resonance. How thoughts, emotions, and hearts can harmonize across distance, echoing between minds like waves on a quiet sea. When two people share a moment of understanding, a glance, a smile, a silence that needs no words, something extraordinary takes place beneath the surface. Invisible currents of thought and feeling pass between them, carried not by speech, but by the quiet synchrony of biology. It is as if their minds briefly tune to the same frequency, two instruments resonating with the same note. Science has begun to illuminate what poets have long known: human connection is measurable in rhythm. When people share emotion, laughter, empathy, grief, their heart rates, breathing patterns, and even brain activity can fall into alignment. This phenomenon, known as interpersonal synchrony, is not imagination or metaphor. It is physiology. Each body adjusts subtly to the other, like dancers finding a shared tempo in the dark. Imagine a group of singers in a candlelit choir. As their voices blend, their hearts begin to beat in unison, their breathing slows, and a single collective rhythm emerges. In that moment, individuality softens into harmony. What one voice cannot hold alone, many voices carry together. The same principle applies to conversation, empathy, and even shared silence. When two people talk deeply, their neural patterns begin to mirror one another. Researchers at Princeton University used fMRI scans to study this effect. As one person told a story and another listened, both brains lit up in matching patterns. The listener's mind didn't merely absorb information, it mirrored it. The storyteller's rhythm became the listener's rhythm. And where alignment was strongest, understanding was deepest. In this way, language becomes not just sound, but shared experience. Each word ripples outward, shaping the listener's internal landscape to resemble the speaker's. When we say we are on the same wavelength, it is not a metaphor, it is truth. This synchrony is ancient. Long before language evolved, early humans relied on rhythm to connect. Drumming, chanting, and dancing allowed groups to coordinate, building trust and cooperation. Even today, When people move in time, walking side by side, clapping or swaying to music, oxytocin levels rise and emotional distance diminishes. We were made to move together. Consider the simple act of shared laughter. It is spontaneous, contagious, and unifying. When one person laughs, mirror neurons in another's brain activate, triggering empathy, and often laughter in return. It's as though the mind, hearing joy, decides instinctively to join in. A moment of play becomes a moment of bonding, two emotional systems briefly echoing in perfect time. This mirroring extends beyond joy. In pain or sadness, we feel echoes of others' suffering through the same neural pathways. When you see someone wince, your brain activates many of the same regions that would process your own discomfort. You don't just imagine their pain, you feel it. This is the biological foundation of compassion. Empathy is not only moral, it is mechanical. These subtle harmonies shape our relationships in ways we seldom notice. In conversation, we unconsciously mirror the posture, tone, and pace of those we care for. When two friends sit together, their gestures often synchronize. One leans forward, the other follows. One smiles and the other's lips lift without thought. This natural mimicry fosters closeness, signaling trust and safety. It is the body's way of saying, we belong in the same rhythm. Perhaps this is why silence with someone you love feels different from silence with a stranger. When two people are emotionally aligned, the absence of words isn't emptiness, it's resonance. It hums beneath the surface like a shared heartbeat. But synchrony doesn't happen only between individuals. It ripples through communities. Large crowds chanting, marching, or singing can enter states of collective alignment where emotion spreads through shared energy. This can unite or divide, heal or harm. A reminder that resonance, like all forces of nature, depends on intention. Harmony born of love restores balance. Harmony born of anger distorts it. Still, even in the vastness of the collective connection, begins with small moments, a breath matched, a gaze held. You might remember such a moment yourself, looking into someone's eyes and feeling that time had paused. What you experienced was not fantasy, but coherence, two systems of thought and emotion, finding a single pulse. For an instant, loneliness dissolves. For an instant, you recognize yourself in another. Neuroscientists have found that this kind of alignment improves communication and emotional understanding. When teacher and student synchronize, brain patterns during learning comprehension deepens. When a therapist attunes to a patient's breathing and tone, trust forms faster. In couples who live closely for years, studies show that their resting heart rates often begin to resemble one another's, a quiet testament to shared life. Yet the beauty of this phenomenon is not in its precision, but in its imperfection. True empathy requires space for difference. Two minds can echo each other without merging completely, like waves crossing, but not colliding. Connection is not uniformity, it is attunement. It's listening without losing your own voice. This harmony extends beyond human relationships. In the wild, animals too share rhythmic bonds. Wolves howl in coordinated patterns to maintain group cohesion. Fireflies synchronize their flashes in vast forests, thousands pulsing as one. Even trees communicate through subtle exchanges of chemicals and electrical impulses underground. The universe itself, from stars to cells, thrives on resonance. Perhaps this is why music feels so universal. A melody can move us, even when we don't understand its words. The rhythm finds the heartbeat. The vibration finds the breath. Each note calls the body to remember. You are not separate. Sound, touch, and feeling all belong to the same language, the language of frequency. In the presence of someone you love, you may notice your breathing slow, your pulse calm. That's synchrony. When you comfort a friend, their stress response may lower because your presence literally alters their physiology. To care for someone is to lend them your rhythm until theirs steadies again. And what of solitude? When alone, we often imagine disconnection, but even then, echoes remain. Your heartbeat aligns to the rhythms of nature, waves wind the sound of your own breath. The same synchrony that binds minds also binds the human organism to the greater world. When you sit beneath a tree or beside water, your nervous system unconsciously slows to match the environment. The forest, the sea, the breeze, all whisper in frequencies the body still understands. So, when life feels scattered or distant, perhaps the answer is not to seek noise but rhythm. To move, to breathe, to listen until your inner pulse finds harmony with something larger. Connection does not always require conversation. Sometimes it simply asks that we feel together. Imagine now in your mind's eye two ripples on a calm lake. They begin apart, traveling outward in soft circles until they meet. At the point of contact, neither disappears. They pass through one another, shaping each other gently, then continue on. That is the nature of empathy. That is what it means to share this brief, luminous existence together. The next time someone sits close, or a melody stirs something wordless inside, you know that the same phenomenon is taking place. Alignment, resonance, communion. Every breath, every glance, every shared stillness is proof that life is woven, not in isolation, but in waves. And so, each of us moves through the world as both sender and receiver, vibrating in quiet sympathy with the countless others who breathe and dream beside us. Our bodies are instruments, our hearts, the strings, and consciousness, that mysterious, shimmering conductor, ensures the song continues. And now, as the ripples of connection fade into the stillness of perception, we turn inward once more to explore how emotion colors what we see, how the mind paints its own universe of meaning and memory. Every moment, the world pours itself into your senses. Light, sound, scent, texture, motion. And from that flood of data, the mind constructs a private universe. But what you see is not the world as it is. It is the world as your brain paints it. Color, shape, emotion. Each perception is an interpretation, a translation from energy to experience. Reality is not received, it is created. Light itself has no color. It's only electromagnetic radiation, a wave traveling through space at nearly 186,000 miles per second. When those waves strike your eyes, photoreceptor cells, cones and rods, capture the signal, sending electrical impulses to the brain. There, within the visual cortex, something miraculous happens. Energy becomes sensation. The brain translates frequency into hue red gold, indigo green, and constructs a world rich with meaning. You don't just see light. You feel it emotionally and physically. But perception doesn't stop at the eyes. The brain is not a passive camera. It's a painter, constantly revising its canvas. It fills in blanks, corrects distortions and colors. Emotion into everything you perceive. Two people, standing in the same place, can look at the same sunset and see entirely different skies. What changes is not the light, it's the lens of emotion. Psychologists call this top-down processing, the way our feelings, expectations, and memories shape what we perceive. When you're joyful, the world seems brighter. When you're weary or anxious, colors fade. The brain adjusts contrast and tone to match your inner state. It's not illusion, it's interpretation. Emotion is the mind's way of adjusting the universe to fit the heart. In moments of awe, standing before a vast canyon or watching the first snowfall, the amygdala and prefrontal cortex work together, enhancing focus while dampening the ego. Time feels slower, space feels wider, and the world glows with heightened clarity. That's not just poetry, it's biology. Your brain is shifting into an open state, allowing you to experience the present moment in its full dimension. Even memory paints over perception. Each time you recall a scene, your brain recreates it rather than retrieves it, layering fragments of imagination and mood onto the original image. What you see when you remember is a collaboration between what was and who you are now. Your eyes may capture light, but your mind adds story. Consider a simple example: the color of the ocean. Its water is nearly colorless, yet under sunlight it turns azure. Beneath storm clouds, steel gray. Your eyes adapt to these changes automatically, but your mind interprets them emotionally. Calm seas appear blue, not only because of light scattering, but because the brain associates that wavelength with peace. We don't just see color, we feel it resonate through emotion and memory. This subtle interweaving of perception and emotion is what makes art possible. A painter does not replicate the world, they reveal its emotional temperature. In the same way, your perception is your personal art form. Every day you are painting the world anew, brushstroke by brushstroke, thought by thought. Neuroscience confirms that perception relies heavily on prediction. The brain continuously anticipates what the senses will find, adjusting its expectations before new information arrives. This predictive coding allows you to navigate familiar spaces with ease, recognizing a friend's face from afar, sensing danger from a subtle movement. But it also means your world is partly a guess, a shimmering projection that the mind refines moment by moment. This is why two people can recall a shared event differently. Their brains predicted different details, filled in different colors. Each perception was true, but true for them. Reality, in this sense, is not singular. It is a spectrum of experiences shaped by biology and belief. In emotional states like fear or anxiety, perception narrows. The amygdala activates the fight or flight response, focusing vision on the source of threat and muting peripheral detail. In contrast, peace expands perception. When you feel safe, the brain allows wider awareness, more light, more sound, more subtlety. Safety, in a neurological sense, is openness. Even sound behaves this way. Under stress, your hearing becomes tuned for sharpness, attuned to danger. But in calm states, the auditory cortex broadens its sensitivity, hearing, texture, and tone, instead of just noise. That's why the world feels richer when you're at ease, because your brain, finally unguarded, allows more of reality in. There's a quiet beauty in realizing how much perception depends on kindness. When you approach the world gently, it responds in kind. The mind's filters open wider, colors deepen, faces soften, the small things, a flicker of sunlight, the curve of a leaf, reclaim their importance. In one study, participants who spent several minutes recalling a moment of gratitude afterward described their surroundings as more vibrant and alive. Their pupils even dilated slightly, a measurable sign of increased engagement. Emotion had literally changed the way they saw light. Gratitude doesn't just warm the heart, it brightens the eyes. Now, imagine standing beneath a night sky. Thousands of stars shimmer above you, scattered across the dark. Each one is a sun burning with ancient light that has traveled for billions of years to reach your gaze. But your mind does not see raw energy. It sees story, connection, wonder. You feel something beyond the photons, a sense of belonging. That feeling, too, is perception, and so the brain is both scientist and poet, measuring wavelengths while weaving meaning. It transforms the indifferent glow of sunlight into gold, the vibration of air into music, the movement of shadow into mystery. It paints the physical world with emotional truth. But perception is not static. It changes as you change. The color of your world shifts with mood, memory, and perspective. What once felt gray may one day bloom with color again, simply because your heart learned a new hue. The mind's canvas is never finished. When you pause long enough to truly see, not to analyze, not to name, but to witness, the act becomes sacred. Every color, every sound, every breath reveals its own quiet miracle. And in that awareness, perception and peace become one and the same. The philosopher William James once said that attention is the very essence of reality. What we choose to notice becomes our world. In that sense, perception is a choice. You are not a passive observer of existence. You are a participant shaping it with every glance. So tonight, as you rest, consider the quiet power of your senses, the pulse of life beneath your fingertips, the cool whisper of air as you breathe, the play of light even behind closed eyes. Each sensation is a conversation between the body and the universe. Each perception, a collaboration between matter and mind. Perhaps that is what consciousness truly is, the meeting point between energy and emotion, between what is and what it feels like to be. To perceive is to create. To see is to awaken. And as you drift further inward, remember, the world outside is not separate from the world within. Both are painted with the same brushlight memory and love. And now, as the colors fade into softer shades of remembrance, we follow their echo into the next realm, the architecture of memory itself, where every thought leaves its imprint and every moment glows with the light of what was. Every life is built upon invisible architecture, a structure not of stone or steel, but of moments. Each memory, whether bright or dim, becomes a beam within that inner design. We live inside the stories our minds have built, and the quiet miracle is that these stories are always changing. Memory is not a recording, it is a living reconstruction. Each time you remember, you rebuild. Deep within your brain, the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure nestled beneath the cortex, serves as the librarian of your experiences. It catalogs sensations, emotions, and images, stitching them together into coherent scenes. When you recall a childhood morning, it retrieves fragments from countless neural libraries, the smell of wet grass from one, the angle of light from another, the sound of laughter from yet another. Your mind assembles them instantly, forming a complete image that feels whole, even though it's a mosaic of thousands of tiny sparks. Yet this process is never identical twice. Each recollection rewires the neural pattern, slightly blending old with new present feeling with past fact. That's why memories evolve. We do not remember events as they happened. We remember them as we are now. Emotion paints the past with today's colors. This delicate imperfection is what allows healing. When you revisit a painful memory with new understanding, the mind can rewrite its tone, softening edges, dimming shadows, letting forgiveness fill the empty spaces. The past cannot change, but your relationship to it can. That is neuroplasticity in its most compassionate form. Memory also anchors identity. It gives you continuity, the feeling that the you who existed 10 years ago still lives within the you of today. Without it, the present would feel unmoored, every moment vanishing the instant it arrives. But with memory, life becomes a river, each second flowing into the next, shaping the banks of who you are. There are two main types of memory: explicit and implicit. Explicit memory holds the stories you can name, facts, faces, dates, the narrative of your days. Implicit memory is older, deeper, felt, rather than spoken. The muscle memory that helps you ride a bike, the comfort that rises when you smell your grandmother's perfume, the ache that lingers at a familiar melody. Implicit memories shape emotion long before thought arrives. And then there is sensory memory, the briefest of all, lasting only seconds, the flicker of awareness that holds sound and light before the brain decides what to keep. It is this fleeting stage that allows the world to flow smoothly, turning disconnected moments into continuous motion. Without it, every blink would feel like a small death. Neuroscientists have found that memories are distributed, not stored in a single place. Even a simple recollection. The sight of rain lights up multiple regions across the brain: visual cortex, auditory cortex, somatosensory regions, emotional centers. To remember is to reawaken the entire network, to bring the past to life as if it were happening now. It is why a scent can move you to tears. The same circuits that once felt love or loss ignite again in perfect imitation. Consider the smell of petrichor, that earthy fragrance after rain. Its molecules travel through the air, touch the olfactory receptors deep within your nose, and send signals straight to the limbic system, bypassing the rational brain entirely. Before you even think you feel a sudden calm nostalgia or ache. Smell is the shortcut to the soul. The hippocampus, however, is not a solitary artist. It collaborates with the amygdala, the brain's emotional curator. Together, they decide which experiences to keep and which to release. Emotion acts as glue. Moments, charged with feeling good or bad, are etched more deeply. That's why we remember where we were, when something profound happened. First love, first heartbreak, first loss. The heart leaves fingerprints on every memory it touches. Yet, memory can also deceive. The brain's tendency to fill in blanks, to smooth over contradictions, means our recollections are more creative than precise. This is not failure, it's efficiency. Your brain, designed for meaning, prioritizes narrative over detail. It keeps the story that helps you survive, even if the story shifts. In this way, memory is both scientist and storyteller, blending fact with feeling to sustain coherence. Think of the way memories appear in dreams. Familiar places merge with impossible landscapes. Faces change while emotions remain constant. In REM sleep, the hippocampus and neocortex collaborate again, replaying fragments of the day while integrating them into the grander archive. Dreaming is the brain's form of housekeeping, tidying, reshelving, cross-referencing. While you rest, the soft architect keeps working. Sometimes, though, memory becomes too vivid. Trauma can etch itself so deeply that the brain struggles to file it away, looping the event again and again. Therapies that focus on sensory grounding and gentle reprocessing, like EMDR, help the mind rewrite the rhythm of recall, transforming terror into understanding. Even in the shadow of pain, neuroplasticity offers light. The brain's architecture bends, never breaks. Memory is also deeply social. When we share stories, we merge them, blending our recollections with others. This collective remembering binds communities together. History itself is the memory of humanity, carried not in neurons, but in words, monuments, and shared traditions. To remember together is to affirm existence. We are not alone in our remembering. Our memories remember each other, and yet memory is fragile. Sleep, stress, and distraction all erode its precision. Information learned under tension is often stored without context, harder to retrieve. Meanwhile, calm and repetition strengthen retention, a reminder that the brain's language is rhythm, not force. The more gently you revisit something, the more faithfully it stays. So much of who you are lives in this invisible architecture. Every song that once moved you, every scent that carries nostalgia, every scar that taught you tenderness. Each is a beam within your internal cathedral, and like any great structure, it must be maintained with care. Gratitude helps reinforce memory's positive pathways. When you recall something beautiful deliberately, a moment of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, a kind word, your brain strengthens those neural links. Over time, gratitude becomes a practice of rewiring the architecture, grows lighter, more open. You begin to live surrounded by windows instead of walls. To reflect on memory is to walk through a museum, curated by feeling. Some rooms are bright, others dim, but all are part of the same structure. When you open one door, echoes spill into the next. Every recollection reshapes not only how you see the past, but how you will meet the future. In this sense, remembering is not about holding on, it's about integration. The goal is not to preserve every detail, but to weave a continuous sense of meaning. Just as a forest remembers through the rings of its trees, so too does the mind record through change. Each layer marks both time and transformation. Picture a shelf of worn books, the stories of your life. Some pages are faded, others vivid, but all are written in the same hand. The hand of awareness steady across years, still writing tonight. Each breath adds another line. Each silence, another paragraph. And perhaps in the quiet hours when thought slows and memory drifts through its corridors, you might sense the soft architect at work, invisible, patient, arranging moments like stained glass. Light from the present shines through, coloring each fragment until they form something whole. That wholeness is you. And now, as we step from the halls of memory into the deeper ocean below, we leave behind the visible for the unseen, the subconscious current that flows beneath every decision, every dream, and every heartbeat. Beneath the surface of your awareness, a vast ocean stirs. Its waves rise and fall. Without your command, its tides move, unseen, guiding the course of every choice you make. This ocean is the subconscious mind, that deep, silent expanse where thought begins before it becomes thought, where intuition whispers before language awakens. If the conscious mind is the sunlight that illuminates the surface, the subconscious is the sea itself, immense, ancient, and alive with unseen motion. You drift upon it every day, carried by its quiet currents. Every heartbeat, every reflex, every intuition is shaped by its tides. You are the sailor and the sea, both navigator and vessel. Neuroscientists estimate that over 95% of mental activity occurs beneath conscious awareness. Most of what you perceive, decide, and feel emerges from processes you cannot name. Your mind is constantly scanning, predicting, solving, all without asking permission. The subconscious doesn't speak in sentences or syllables. It communicates in symbols, sensations, and emotion. It's the language of dreams and déjà vu, the flicker of instinct that steers you before reason catches up. This hidden intelligence evolved to protect you. In the wild, survival required speed, noticing movement in tall grass, sensing danger before seeing it. The subconscious gathers fragments of sensory data faster than the conscious mind can assemble them. By the time you feel unease, your body has already measured 100 subtle cues, a change in sound temperature or the rhythm of another's breath. The feeling arrives before the explanation, intuition, as evolution's inheritance. In the mid-20th century, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet demonstrated something astonishing. When a person decides to move, to lift a finger, to speak a word, electrical activity in the brain begins nearly half a second before the person becomes aware of making that decision. The subconscious acts first. Consciousness follows. We are not puppets, but participants in a choreography far older than awareness. The mind begins the dance, and the self joins mid-step. This delay, though invisible, reveals something beautiful. Consciousness is not the commander of thought. It is the witness. Your awareness floats above a vast system that hums faithfully beneath it, sustaining every heartbeat, every pattern of breath. The subconscious is not shadow, it is structure. Without it, you would be overwhelmed by the raw flood of existence. Imagine if you had to consciously command every beat of your heart, every blink, every balance of salt and sugar in your blood. You would never have time to think at all. The subconscious mind shoulders this labor quietly, freeing your awareness for wonder, creativity, and reflection. It is the body's generosity, performing billions of miracles per second while you dream. And yet, this deep current does more than sustain, it guides. Your preferences, habits, and impulses all trace back to networks formed long before conscious reasoning. When you reach for comfort, when you avoid a path, when you sense a truth you can't explain, it's your subconscious speaking. In its quiet dialect, it remembers what the conscious mind forgets. In the subconscious, time behaves differently. Events from decades ago can surface as if they just happened, their emotions fresh, their meanings unfinished. Dreams are proof of this nightly journeys through the archive of the soul, where the past reshapes itself to meet the present. A face you've forgotten reappears. A landscape from childhood blends with one you've never seen. Here, memory and imagination merge. Logic dissolves, and everything flows together like watercolor. Dreaming is one of the subconscious mind's ways of communication. Symbolic, emotional, non-linear. It reveals not what is real, but what is felt as real. A dream of flying may not be about air, but about freedom. A dream of falling may not be about fear, but about release. The subconscious speaks through metaphor, and emotion is its grammar. Hypnotherapists and neuroscientists studying altered states of consciousness have found that under deep relaxation, the mind's defensive filters soften. In this state, people can access forgotten memories or form new positive associations, rewriting internal narratives. The subconscious, once engaged with intention, becomes a collaborator in healing. It listens to imagery, repetition, and tone. That's why gentle affirmations and visualization can reshape thought. They bypass judgment and speak directly to the architecture of feeling. But even when uninvited, the subconscious is always active. Consider the phenomenon of incubation. You ponder a problem, Set it aside, and hours later, as you shower or walk, the answer appears effortlessly. That's not coincidence. It's the mind at work, below awareness. While you rest, the subconscious continues, weaving connections, untangling patterns, solving quietly. This process mirrors what happens in nature. Beneath the calm surface of an ocean, unseen currents carry nutrients, shape continents, and sustain entire ecosystems. Similarly, the subconscious sustains the ecology of the self. It nourishes creativity, intuition, and balance. You don't control it, but you can learn to navigate it through calm trust and awareness. Meditation is one of the most profound ways to approach this inner ocean. When thought slows and breath deepens, the layers of noise begin to part. In the stillness, sensations arise. Images, feelings, memories. They surface like bubbles, carrying messages from the deep. By watching them without judgment, you allow the subconscious to speak in its native language. Artists often describe inspiration as something that arrives. A melody appears whole. A line of poetry writes itself. An image forms in the mind. What they experience is subconscious synthesis, the slow, invisible labor of thought, made visible in a moment of clarity. The subconscious never sleeps. It only waits for silence to be heard. Even intuition, that sudden knowing, is not magic, but mastery. It's the result of countless patterns, learned and stored beneath awareness. When a decision feels right, your subconscious has already run the data, compared the outcomes, and delivered the verdict through sensation. Intuition is intelligence in its quietest form. Still, the subconscious can also hold shadows, fears, biases, unhealed memories that shape behavior unseen. Bringing these into awareness requires compassion, not confrontation. The mind reveals its depths only to gentleness. To look inward harshly is to cloud the water. To look softly is to see the reflection clearly. Modern psychology describes the subconscious not as a single entity, but as a network, a dynamic interplay between memory, emotion, and physiology. It's less a place than a process, the constant conversation between the known and the unknown. And like the ocean, it is responsive. When treated with curiosity and respect, it reveals wonders. When ignored or suppressed, it grows turbulent. Think of your dreams, your impulses, your sudden flashes of memory as waves, signals from the deep. They rise, crest, and fall, asking only to be noticed. Each one carries wisdom. Each one says there is more to you than you know. The subconscious is not beneath you. It is you, the part that listens when thought falls silent, that remembers what language forgets, that keeps the body breathing even when the mind drifts away. It is your truest companion, patient, tireless, luminous in its secrecy. So as you lie still now, listening to the slow rhythm of your breath, imagine yourself floating upon that inner sea. Above you, stars shimmer your conscious thoughts, each a point of light. Below, the vast dark water hums with infinite movement. There is no division between the two, only depth. You are both surface and ocean, awareness and mystery, light and current. And somewhere within that stillness, something ancient is listening. It is the same intelligence that stirred the first cells to life, that carved the pathways of instinct, that whispers through intuition and dream. It asks nothing of you but recognition. If you listen closely, you may hear it not in words, but in calm. that soft, soundless pull inward, the feeling that everything somehow already knows its place. And now, as the tide of the subconscious quiets and the water stills to glass, we rise again toward the surface to explore how two minds, even without speech, can share one rhythm, one understanding, and one breath. Sometimes the deepest conversations happen in silence. Two people sit together, saying nothing, yet the air between them hums with meaning. A glance, a tilt of the head, a shared breath, all carry more truth than 1,000 words could hold. This is communication without speech, the unspoken dialogue of presence. It is the oldest form of understanding, born long before language shaped sound into structure. Long before the first human spoke, there were gestures, glances, and rhythms, the subtle choreography of connection, the rise and fall of the chest, the soft mirroring of expression, the tilt toward or away. These are the quiet words of the body. Scientists call it non-verbal synchrony, the mysterious alignment that occurs when two people connect. Studies using motion tracking and heart rate monitors have shown that when people feel understood, their movements, breathing, and even neural rhythms begin to match. This is not mimicry, it's resonance. The body listens, then answers in kind. When two people look into each other's eyes, tiny muscles around the pupils respond automatically. If one person's pupils widen, the others often do too. This synchrony signals safety, a shared openness. In those seconds, a wordless contract is written. I see you. I trust you. Empathy at its root is physical. Your brain contains mirror neurons, specialized cells that activate both when you perform an action and when you see someone else perform it. When you watch someone smile, your brain rehearses the same motion. When you see someone in pain, your body echoes their distress. You don't just observe emotions, you simulate them. Feeling together becomes the foundation of compassion. Imagine watching a child trip and fall. Before you think, you flinch. Before you act, your own body tenses. That instant of shared sensation is the nervous system's empathy, as immediate as a heartbeat, as ancient as life itself. And yet this connection doesn't require proximity. It can stretch across distance, sustained by memory and imagination. When you think of someone you love, the same brain regions activate as when you're with them. Your heartbeat shifts slightly, as though remembering its rhythm beside theirs. The mind, it seems, can bridge absence. This silent synchrony also plays out in nature. Schools of fish, flocks of birds, herds of animals, all move in harmony, guided not by a leader, but by subtle cues of awareness. They sense each other's motion through pressure, vibration, and field. The result is choreography without command, unity through presence. Humans, too, carry this instinct, though we often forget it in the noise of thought. Consider the stillness of shared grief. In mourning, words often falter. A hand rests on a shoulder, a quiet presence fills the space, and something passes between souls that speech could only disturb. Science may describe it as co-regulation, two nervous systems aligning to stabilize emotion, but lived experience calls it grace. Even solitude holds echoes of this connection. When you walk through a forest or sit beside the sea, your body subtly adjusts to the rhythm of your surroundings. Your breath slows to match the waves. Your heart rate follows the sway of trees in the wind. The earth itself becomes your silent companion. Every living thing, it seems, moves to a common pulse. There is a quiet humility in this realization. you are never truly alone. The invisible web of resonance connects you to others, human, animal, elemental. Your every exhale feeds the trees. Their exhale returns to you as air. Your heartbeat echoes the tempo of the planet turning through space. Life at every scale is a conversation. In close relationships, this wordless communication becomes instinctive. Partners who have lived together for years can predict each other's moods from the smallest cues. A pause, a sigh, the way a cup is placed on a table. These are not coincidences, but learned harmonies, years of mirrored emotion turned into music. And when two people truly understand one another, something deeper still occurs. Brain imaging studies show that their neural patterns can align not metaphorically, but physically. During meaningful interaction activity, in one person's frontal and temporal lobes can mirror the others. It is as if the conversation builds a single shared mind. Language becomes bridge, not barrier. This merging doesn't erase individuality. Rather, it amplifies it, each person reflecting the other more clearly, like two mirrors facing one another, creating infinite depth. To be seen this way is to remember your own existence through another's eyes. But connection isn't limited to harmony. Even in conflict, minds meet. Tension itself is a form of communication. Anger, fear, misunderstanding, all are signals, attempts at resonance that have fallen out of tune. When you listen closely enough, even discord can become dialogue. Peace begins not in agreement, but in awareness. When we speak of empathy, we often imagine effort, the conscious act of stepping into another's perspective. But true empathy, like all forms of resonance, happens effortlessly when judgment softens. It doesn't require trying to feel what another feels. It simply allows feeling to flow where walls once stood. Children demonstrate this most purely. Before they learn social restraint, infants cry when they hear another infant cry. Their empathy is immediate, no thought, no filter. They feel the shared vibration of existence, raw and true. Over time, society teaches distance, but the resonance remains within us, waiting to be remembered. Remember too that silence can be the most profound language of all. In silence, there is space for truth. The pauses in conversation, the moments when words fall away, those are the thresholds where understanding deepens. The nervous system listens in the stillness, adjusting, aligning, resting. Speech is movement. Silence is arrival. You may have felt it once sitting beside someone you love, not speaking yet, knowing everything that needed to be said. The air between you felt alive, humming with invisible connection. You could sense each other's breath, the warmth of presence, the peace of being understood. That is communion, not religious, but human. If perception colors the world and memory builds it, then connection animates it. It is the pulse that gives meaning to consciousness, the thread that binds minds across distance and time. Even now, as you read or listen, your neurons are aligning with the rhythm of these words, reconstructing thought in your own inner voice. Two minds across space and time meeting quietly here. Perhaps the truest definition of empathy is simple resonance across boundaries, whether between people, species, or even between thought and nature. It is the recognition that everything moves in relation to everything else. Your mind is not a closed chamber, it's an open field, vibrating with others. When you next feel understood even by a stranger, remember that this is not coincidence. It is the physics of compassion. Your molecules, your frequencies, your very breath respond to connection, the way a tuning fork responds to sound. And when empathy hums between people, it heals not only the heart, but the body. Imagine for a moment all the invisible threads that stretch across the world, billions of heartbeats, billions of rhythms. Somewhere, someone breathes in as you breathe out. Somewhere a song plays that once made you cry. Somewhere, another human is looking at the same moon, and for an instant you are joined. That quiet joining, that unseen harmony, is what it means to be alive together, to exist not as separate minds, but as variations of one greater awareness. Each thought, each kindness, each shared silence ripples outward into the collective sea of consciousness. And so connection is not something to find, it is something to remember. You are already within it. You always were. And now, as the waves of shared awareness dissolve into the stillness of sleep, we drift to the final threshold, the dreaming mind, where the conscious and subconscious meet to weave reality anew. When the conscious world fades and the eyes close, a different universe begins to unfold, one woven not from matter, but from memory, imagination, and emotion. Dreaming is the theater of the mind, where the boundaries between past and present dissolve and reason bows to rhythm. Each night you drift through this hidden landscape, built entirely by yourself, yet often feeling larger than life. The brain does not sleep as the body does. Even in slumber, billions of neurons fire in intricate harmony, replaying fragments of experience and creating something new from their collisions. This nightly symphony is not chaos, it is renewal. Dreaming is how the mind repairs itself, stitching together the fabric of emotion and thought into wholeness once again. During the rapid eye movement, or REM stage of sleep, your brain becomes as active as when you were awake. The prefrontal cortex, the center of logic and restraint, quiets while visual and emotional regions ignite. It's a reversal of day and night. Within your own skull, reason sleeps, imagination wakes. And in that freedom, the subconscious tells its stories not with words but with symbols. You may walk through cities you've never seen, speak to people long gone, or find yourself flying over impossible landscapes. Every element of the dream, the sound, the color, the emotion arises from within you. Dreams are not random. They are deeply ordered reflections of feelings stitched into imagery, so the mind can process what words cannot. Neuroscientists have found that during REM sleep, the brain strengthens synaptic connections linked to learning and emotion. When you dream, you're not escaping life, you're refining it. Your mind is rehearsing, reorganizing, and reframing the day's experiences, weaving them into memory. Even nightmares serve purpose. They allow the safe reprocessing of fear, transforming raw emotion into understanding. In this way, dreaming is emotional housekeeping, the psyche's silent therapy. Freud once called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, but modern science has softened that view. Dreams are less about secret desires and more about integration, balancing what the waking mind cannot yet hold. They allow the impossible, the contradictory, and the unresolved to coexist until the heart can bear them awake. Every dream is an act of compassion between the mind and itself. Consider how dreams use metaphor to translate emotion. If you're overwhelmed, you might dream of rising tides. If you feel free, you might soar through air. If you feel unseen, you might wander invisible among crowds. The language of dreams is poetry written in sensation. Even animals dream. Watch a sleeping cat twitch its paws, or a dog whimper softly. The motor cortex flickers, as if it were running, hunting, remembering. Dreaming is as ancient as life itself. It's how the nervous system, from the smallest mammal to the human mind, restores balance. Inside a dream, time and identity melt into one another. You may shift shape, age, or gender without surprise. You may speak languages you don't know, feel emotions too vast for the waking self. This fluidity reveals something profound. The mind does not need continuity to recognize itself. Even as it transforms, it knows I am. Perhaps that's why dreams feel sacred. They remind us that consciousness is not confined to logic or daylight. It's a fluid, creative force capable of endless transformation. In the dreaming mind, imagination is reality, and perhaps in some hidden way, reality is imagination too. Lucid dreaming, the state in which the dreamer becomes aware of dreaming, offers a glimpse into this creative power. Within that awareness, you can shape the dream, direct the story, explore the mind as landscape. It's not mere fantasy, but self-communication, a dialogue between the conscious and subconscious. Lucid dreamers often report a profound sense of peace, awe, and unity. For a moment, they witness their own consciousness, painting the universe around them. But even ordinary dreams hold quiet revelations. A dream may linger all day, a symbol you can't decipher, a feeling that stays like music heard through walls. When this happens, it's often because the dream has touched a deeper chord. The subconscious, patient and poetic, sends reminders through imagery when the heart is ready to listen. In ancient cultures, dreams were not dismissed as illusion. They were seen as messages, bridges to the unseen. Greek temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, welcomed dreamers who sought visions for guidance. Indigenous peoples across continents spoke of dreamwalkers and ancestral visits. While science now explains the biology, it does not erase the mystery that every night the universe inside you awakens to speak. Your dreams are entirely your own, yet they belong to something universal. Across time and culture, people dream of the same themes: flight, falling, pursuit, transformation. These recurring motifs are woven into human consciousness, reflections of shared biology and shared longing. We are all participants in the same quiet mythology retold every night behind closed eyes. What you dream shapes how you live. Studies have shown that people who recall dreams frequently tend to have higher creativity and emotional intelligence. The imagination exercised in sleep strengthens the neural circuits that support empathy and insight in waking life. To dream, then, is to practice understanding, to rehearse the art of being human. In the quiet space before waking, there is often a fragile border. The hypnopompic state. Thought and dream blend like mist and sunlight. Images drift through awareness. A face, a phrase, a feeling before dissolving into day. This is the subconscious handing back the reins, whispering its final messages before retreating to the depths. It's worth listening in that liminal hour. Sometimes the mind, still half asleep, speaks its clearest truths. And then comes the return. The first breath of morning. Light behind the eyelids. The slow remembering of who and where you are. Yet something remains, a shimmer, a residue of wonder. Dreams leave traces in the nervous system, faint as pollen, shaping mood and thought long after waking. Perhaps this is why mornings can feel like reincarnation, the self rebuilt anew from fragments of night. Each dawn, consciousness rises again, rebuilt from stories told in the dark. The dreaming mind hands its notes to the waking one, saying, "Here, this is what you needed to know, even if you can't name it yet." To dream is to remember that the boundary between inner and outer worlds is porous. What we imagine shapes what we perceive, and what we perceive reshapes what we imagine. Each night, the mind dissolves itself to be reborn, not to escape the world, but to understand it better. As you drift tonight, know that the same process will unfold within you. Neurons will fire in silent choreography. Memories will be softened, fears rewritten, hopes rehearsed. Your subconscious, vast and patient, will paint new worlds to carry into morning. And when you wake blinking into light, you will bring a little of that night world with you, a whisper of mystery, a spark of renewal, a reminder that the line between dreaming and waking is thinner than it seems, because consciousness is not divided by sleep and wake, but connected two faces of the same infinite awareness, breathing in and out through the rhythm of life itself. And now, as dawn's light begins to rise on the horizon of this story, we enter the final reflection, where science meets stillness and the great quiet truth of existence unfolds like the last breath before rest. Morning arrives, not with sound, but with light. The dark blue fades into silver, and silver into gold. Somewhere the first bird calls tentative, as if testing the new air, and within that soft, unfolding consciousness rises once more. The dreamer becomes the observer again. The body stirs. The world begins anew. But if you listen closely, you can feel it, the continuity between the one who dreamed and the one who wakes. There was no true division, only a change in rhythm. Awareness, like breath, flows in and out. Inhale the day, exhale the dream. The same current moves beneath both unbroken and eternal. We spend our lives moving between states, waking and sleeping, thinking and feeling, knowing and wondering. Yet all are threads in the same tapestry of being. The conscious and subconscious logic and emotion, body and mind, each completes the other. And it is in their meeting that the miracle of self-awareness takes form. You are not separate from the universe that surrounds you. The light that warms your skin began as energy in the heart of a star. The calcium in your bones was forged in ancient supernovae. The oxygen in your lungs once flowed through forests, oceans, and clouds. To exist is to participate in the continuity of everything. Science tells us that nothing is truly still. Even in the quietest moment, atoms vibrate, planets spin, galaxies drift. And yet, from this ceaseless motion arises the feeling of peace. Because peace is not the absence of motion, it is harmony within it. It's the point where movement and stillness become indistinguishable. Perhaps consciousness itself is like this, a field of vibration, vast and continuous, within which thoughts and selves appear like ripples on a calm sea. Each life, each moment of awareness is one ripple, beautiful, fleeting, and inseparable from the whole. When the ripple fades, the sea remains. And in that quiet truth, there is comfort. The physicist Erwin Schrödinger once wrote that consciousness is singular, that the apparent multiplicity of minds is an illusion of perspective. We are all facets of one great awareness, gazing through countless eyes. When you look into another's face and feel recognition, it's because the same light that animates you shines there too. Life is not a collection of separate beings. It is a single being, exploring itself through infinite forms. The psychology of perception, memory, and dreaming all point to the same conclusion. The universe is not something you witness from the outside, it is something you participate in. Every observation changes what is observed. Every heartbeat sends waves through the fabric of existence. Even your smallest thought ripples outward in subtle ways. When you stand in silence, you are not detached from the world. You are synchronizing with it. The rhythm of your pulse echoes the rhythm of the planet. The sound of your breath is the wind made intimate. The neurons firing in your mind mirror the patterns of galaxies, both systems of energy, both bound by laws of motion and balance. This is what science at its most poetic reveals. That you are not in the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself briefly as human. And yet, for all its vastness, existence remains tender. It gives rise to beauty, again and again. The spiral of a shell, the branching of a river, the flicker of thought. All of it expressions of the same symmetry written across scales. There is comfort in knowing that the laws that govern stars also govern kindness, growth, and love. As the world brightens, so does the mind. You begin to remember the journey, the slow awakening from origins to awareness, from sensation to empathy, from isolation to unity. Each chapter of your being, like each chapter of this story, a wave, returning to the same ocean. Even now, as you breathe, thousands of processes unfold silently inside you. Your cells divide and heal, guided by codes older than language. Your neurons exchange signals that have traveled the same pathways since your earliest memory. Your heart continues its rhythm, unbroken, through every dream and every dawn. This constancy is your quiet miracle, the subconscious symphony that carries you through each moment, and above it all, awareness, soft, luminous, patient. It watches thoughts rise and fall like tides, memories drift like clouds, sensations flicker like fireflies. It needs nothing, demands nothing. It is content to be. To touch this awareness, even briefly, is to find peace that no circumstance can disturb. It is not something you must earn or create. It has always been here beneath every layer of thought, as the still point around which life turns. This is what mindfulness teaches, what science confirms, and what the heart remembers when all else grows quiet. That presence is the truest form of wisdom. To notice the simple miracle of being alive, to feel your breath, your heartbeat, your place in the unfolding story of the cosmos, is to awaken fully to reality. So, as we come to the end of this journey, from the neurons firing in your mind to the stars burning in distant galaxies, know that they are part of one continuum. The same equations that describe the curvature of space-time also describe the flow of blood in your veins. The same energy that moves comets across the solar wind moves thoughts through your brain. There is no boundary between the physical and the spiritual. There is only scale. And just as gravity draws the planets toward their orbits, something within you is drawn toward meaning, the quiet recognition that life itself is sacred, not because of what it achieves, but because of what it is. A single fleeting, magnificent spark in the endless expanse. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of this vast continuum. The horizon before you glows with the light of a new day. The dreams of night linger behind, like mist over water. Between them you stand awake, aware, at peace. You inhale the cool air. You exhale the weight of thought. You feel the pulse of life moving through you, through the air, through the earth beneath your feet. It is all the same rhythm. You are here. You are now. You are enough. Let that truth settle into your breath, into your bones. Let it ripple through the mind like sunlight through deep water. You are not separate from this moment. You are this moment, whole, alive, and infinite. So, rest now. Let your thoughts drift where they will. Let your body grow still. The universe continues its quiet expansion, galaxies turning in perfect calm. Somewhere, stars are being born. Somewhere else, others fade. And here, in this small corner of the cosmos, you breathe a miracle among miracles. Time continues softly. Light travels endlessly. And the story of consciousness, your story goes on.